It's M113A. For today, we are going to start on your COPAR process as a continuation of your 113A concepts or the application of what we've learned in 113A. And for the COPAR process, we are going to start with the pre-entry phase. This is going to be a short lecture. I think it's only about 15 slides. The handout has been sent to you through the group chat as well. The pre-entry phase, we are talking about the process and activities that are going to be done before we actually go to the community. Okay, so in a nutshell, it includes choosing what community we are going to go to, coordinating with the people, getting the permits, knowing your scope of activities that you're going to do in that barangay. Okay, so let's continue. The 5 phases of the COPAR process include the pre-entry phase, which we are going to discuss now. The entry phase, this is when you go to the actual community already. Organizational and building is when you start facilitating your activities already within the community. Consolidation, strengthening, and sustenance phase is retaining or running the programs in the community that you have implemented. Phase out and expansion is basically when you pull out from the community and when you're going to endorse, when you're going to make sure that the activities continue even though your group is not there already. For today, we are going to focus on the first phase, which is the pre-entry phase. Okay. COPAR, okay, community organization, also has the PAR phase, CO and PAR. PAR is divided into 4 phases as well. Your participatory research, which means including the community in researching for the problems that exist in their community. Participatory planning is planning for activities that will solve for the problem that you have researched on. Okay. Participatory implementation and action. Okay. Once we implement actions and plans, as much as possible, we must include the community, not only the duty group, not only the student nurses, not only the visiting visiting organizations in the barangay. Okay, so the community should be involved, okay, in implementing the projects. And your, of course, monitoring and evaluation. What do you monitor? You monitor that the programs are running smoothly, your goals and your key points, checkpoints are being achieved, okay, as you facilitate the activities. And evaluation, okay, similar to your we call this what you do in the hospital. Your goals met, partially met, unmet. Okay, so you evaluate so that you can adjust as well your implementation. The COPAR phase and critical activities, will be talking about a breakdown of activities that we do within the community during the pre-entry phase, also with the outside the community. Okay. So pre-entry phase, what is the pre-entry phase? Your initial phase where selection of community is done. So we are not yet going to a community. We are going to choose first what community are we going to. Okay, what community are we going to target? What community are we going to help? Okay, simplest phase in outputs, strategies, and time spent. Okay, so basically, it is talking about, yeah, this is the initial phase before any activity. Now that we know what COPAR is, we are going to think, where are we going to implement our COPAR? Okay, and this is the pre-entry phase. Critical activities. Okay, so I think there are 5 critical activities that we must do in the pre-entry phase. So we begin with initial consultation with local government units. Okay, so we have to go through people's organizations and other relevant agencies, not because you have a good intention of already helping a barangay or a community, is that you just go there and just implement whatever activities you want. You cannot. You have to go through the LGUs, you have to go through permits, okay? You have to go through the leaders of the barangay. Also, the school has to be the one to coordinate with them. Okay, being nursing students, it is the school who will choose. It is actually the dean Okay, and the community coordinator who will coordinate with the local government agencies, the LGI, the barangay captain, the kagawads. Okay, and this will be a public consultation. Okay, it is not only the barangay heads who will decide. Okay, the barangay heads will also consult their people if they will allow the students of the University of Cordilleras to go to their community. Okay, so who are the LGUs or agencies that we'll be talking about? First is the provincial and municipal government unit. Okay, so for example, before you even go to your barangay, for example, me, Pakdal, okay, I even have to go through first the provincial and municipal governments. Sometimes I have to ask permission first from the mayor, okay, from the governor, okay, and then the governor is the one who will endorse me to the barangay level. So provincial, municipal government unit, municipal development office, okay, in use because yeah, it has to be coordinated with all the government agencies as well. Rural health unit, you have to ask permission from the barangay doctors, barangay health center, okay. Other health-related or non-related agencies serving in the community. If there are other organizations who are helping out the community, you coordinate with them as well. Okay, for example, if there is a aside from the SK, of course, are there other organizations who are helping out the barangay? Existing people's organization. These people can be from within the community or outside the community, community volunteers, charity institutions who are helping out the barangay. So we also coordinate with them. What is the reason for doing this? Why do we have to coordinate with all these people? Okay, so it is more effective and efficient in identifying problems and solutions because, yeah, of course, it is the leaders of those organizations, the heads of the organizations already know what is the problem of the barangay, what are the concerns of the barangay. Okay, so it is easier that coordinate from people who know already the problem instead of going there and starting from scratch. Okay, so efficiency in identifying problems and solutions, especially yeah, like existing people's organization and other health-related, non-health-related agencies serving there. So they are there already because they already know the problem of the community based on their studies. They may be implementing problem-solving activities already. Okay, so we can either help them, okay, or we can implement activities that will not overlap, okay, or that will not be redundant. Okay, health solutions that will not be redundant instead of starting from scratch. Okay, this will also help identify contact persons and priority communities. Okay, if the community has still sub-communities, okay, so for example, yeah, we need more health programs bandang north ng barangay namin, for example, or for example in Irisan. Irisan is a very big barangay. It's one of the biggest barangays in Baguio. But if you have to identify priority communities in Irisan, of course, it will be the dump site area. And previously, the dump site area, kasi nandun talaga yung tourist, of course. In terms of exposure to the garbage, sila yung may mga health deficits, health problems, may potential health threats. So sila yung priority communities, especially in big barangays. It will help you identify contact persons once you do your pre-entry phase. Okay, you will know who are the persons who I have to coordinate with. It will help you identify who are the persons I have to arrange permits with, arrange meetings with. Okay, who will sign the forms? Who are the persons who will be legally responsible, okay, for students going in and out of the barangay. For example, kung may nasaktan na estudyante dun sa barangay during the duty, okay, who are the people we are going to assume responsibility for? Okay, tapos sino pa? Are there what do you call this, police personnel near the area, for example? Yun yung mga kailangan natin i-identify. Okay, so how do we select community for immersion? Okay, it's not just going to any community. It's not that randomly choosing. For example, I will ask all of you to write your barangay in a piece of paper, tapos i-draw lots natin. Okay, saan tayo magko-community this week? Kaninong barangay tayo magko-community this year? Okay, draw lots. We don't do that. Okay, there is a criteria, okay, in selecting communities for immersion. There is a selection process. Okay, and we have here the DOPE acronym. Okay, the DOPE acronym will further help us understand and choose what community can we target, okay, for our immersion. Okay, so when we talk about DOPE, letter D means depressed or the weaker population. So ibig sabihin, they are the ones who the poorest of poor, what do you call this? Nasa P pa pala yung poorest of poor. But when you talk about depressed, they are the ones who do not have the ability to help themselves. Okay, they are the weaker population in terms of not only financially but in terms of intellectually. Okay, so they do not know, okay, that they about health too much, na sila yung magbe-benefit in terms of health education, in terms of free health services, in terms of house to house. Okay, yung mga depressed and weaker population. Okay. So oppressed, harshly or inhumanely treated. Okay, kung meron, actually similar yan sa E, sa exploited. Okay, so kung merong mga communities na oppressed and exploited, for example, for this letter, ang naiisip ko yung mga communities that are in Mindanao, for example, yung mga around the terrorist groups. Okay, so basically they're oppressed. Those communities who are affected by religion and politics. Okay, so oppressed, harshly, or inhumanly treated. Okay, poor. Okay, so yun naman yung pinaka importante. If the community is poor, means they are lacking of resource and ability. Okay, so that is a very good criteria in choosing their community, okay, for immersion, for us to give our free services, our community health services to them. If they are poor, lacking of resource and ability, wala silang pambili ng gamot, wala silang, they don't have the ability to go to for checkups in their barangay center. Okay, yung mga taong akala nila kahit pagpupunta akong barangay health clinic is may bayad, kaya wag na lang. Okay, so yeah, so those are the things that those are the communities that we would like to prioritize. Of course, exploited and taken advantage. Okay, if you're exploited, okay, so of course, same as oppressed. Okay, so yan yung mga target natin. So in selection of community for immersion, depressed, oppressed, poor, and exploited. The more depressed, the more oppressed, the poorer the community is, the more exploited the community is. Okay? They are a better choice for us to give our community service. But of course, there are other factors. Pero ito yung mga i-consider natin. Okay? External factors can be their receptiveness as well. Kahit depressed, oppressed, poor, and exploited sila, kung hindi naman sila receptive, kung ayaw nila, okay, so hindi natin mapipilit yung sarili natin. Depressed, oppressed, poor, exploited sila, but they do not see the problem and we do not want other people from outside helping them. So we cannot force ourselves in their community. So there are still a lot of factors that we will consider. Okay, but these are some. This is the DOPE acronym. Okay. Okay. Other factors in choosing a community. Okay, clustered households of at least 100. Okay, at least in their barangay or in their area, there are at least 100 households. Okay, so the reason for that is we would like to be efficient and effective as well. So we do not want to go to a large in terms of area, okay, a very big community when you have to hike and keep on hiking pero ang mga bahay lang na nandun is around 10. Okay, imagine a community as big as let's exaggerate, as big as Baguio City, in a land area as big as Baguio City, okay, and then there are only around 20 houses. Okay. So we have to commute or walk or hike to those 20 houses. So ang lalayo yun. Okay, so it's not efficient and effective already. Yung 4 weeks na stay natin doon. But if there are around at least 100 houses, okay, mas marami tayong magbibigyan ng service. So this is a factor in choosing a community for immersion. At least 100 households ang meron doon sa barangay niya. Okay, letter C, presence of verbalized or written requested need from the community. So this is a very good criteria in choosing. If the community itself is the one writing, okay, to the organization or the one writing to the school saying, good morning, Ma'am Magbilang. We are from the community of Mr. Gonzalez and we would like to request, okay, we have learned that you have been sending nursing students in Kapangan, okay, to give health services. Is it possible that you also send nursing students to our community, okay, because we are in need of health services as well? Okay, so if there is a written or verbalized request from the community, that is already a very good point or a very high point or a very good factor for us to choose their community, okay, for our services. Why? Because it provides better acceptance. Okay, so if they are asking for it, it means that if we arrive there, they will welcome us with open arms. Okay, so sobrang happy sila that we will be there. There will be less resistance. Okay, compared to communities that wouldn't want our services, if we go to their community, kakatok tayo sa pinto. Okay, so kami po yung mga from the University of Cordilleras, what will they do? Ay, hindi, okay lang kami dito. Okay, we don't need your services. So we do not want that compared to communities who are asking for us. Okay, so if there is a community that requests for our services, very good, let's go. Letter D, okay. For factor absence or inadequacy of similar health services, if any government organization or non-government organization, if there is an existing health agency, especially if it still utilizes COPAR. So yung first sentence muna, okay, we choose that community if the community has absence or inadequate similar health services or NGO, like when we were in Mangkayan, of course. When we talk about Mangkayan, there is only one or two, okay, what do you call that, barangay health clinic that will take care of the different sitios. Okay, so talagang kulang sila. Okay, so what happened was when we were there, okay, there were at least 4 groups who were going to different sitios, okay, to be able to give health services. Okay, so kulang sila. There were only 2 midwives. Sabi mo ng 2 midwives going to 8 sitios. Okay, so that is ineffective and inefficient. So at least when the nursing students were there, okay, they had other students going to other health personnel going to house to house. Okay. Another factor is the second sentence. If there is any existing health agency, kabaliktaran naman. Okay, it means that there are other organizations helping out already in that barangay. So we have to take that into consideration because we do not want to overlap. Okay? We do not want to impede or disturb. Okay, especially if we are going to disrupt, okay, the services that they are doing. Especially last sentence, if they are also doing COPAR, if they are implementing the same principles that we are implementing, okay, might as well let's go to another community. Okay, kasi meron nang tumutulong sa barangay na to. So those are the factors again in choosing a community for immersion. Okay, we have to make sure that the community is dope, meaning depressed, oppressed, poor, and exploited. So think about, I want you to think about your barangay now, the community. Okay, so answer by yourself. Is your community depressed, oppressed, poor, and exploited? Okay, so assess your own community. Okay. Does your community have a clustered household of at least 100? Okay, so in your barangay, meron bang mga 100 na households dyan? Okay. Letter C, presence of verbalized written request from the community. Do you think your community would be right, the University of Cordilleras, and request, okay, a need, okay, for student nurses to go around your area and spend their community nursing? And are your government organizations and non-government organizations who give health services adequate in your area? Okay. Are there other agencies doing COPAR in your area? Okay, so A, B, C, D. Okay, and think about your community. Okay, are your communities qualified or in need of nursing students? So yan yung mga kailangang sagutan before we deploy students or before we do the pre-entry phase and coordinate with your barangay. Okay, of course, because we are going through the LGUs, we are going through the municipal and provincial offices, there will be formal communications and courtesy calls, okay, formal and informal leaders at the provincial and municipal level. Of course, okay, you are coming from a university. The university and the college must coordinate with the government agencies and government leaders. And if you see here, formal and informal leaders. Okay, so we are not only talking about the mayors, the barangay captains. When you talk about informal leaders, especially in communities, okay, you talk about the elders. You talk about the influential people in the community. Okay, sino ba yung mga chief, okay? The chief of a tribe, okay, so yung mga respected elders of the community, they can possibly not be the barangay captains, pero sila yung mga ancestral leaders, okay, na barangay. So they are the informal leaders. So we have to give communications and courtesy calls. Formal communications can be in terms of meetings, okay, what do you call this, documents, okay, and contracts to be signed as well can be part of your formal communications. Okay. Courtesy calls is actually visiting the leaders, okay, going to them and talking to them, and what we call this, presenting yourselves, introducing yourself. That is your courtesy call. Okay, formal communications and courtesy calls to formal and informal leaders at the provincial level and municipal level. Okay, why do we do this? To give respect and courtesy to them as persons. Okay, because even not being leaders, okay, we have to we have to acknowledge them that that is their territory, that is their house, that is their barangay. Okay, so we have to introduce ourselves. We have to present to them our intent, why we want to go there, as leaders of the community as well. Okay, so yeah, paying respect to the leaders, asking permission, showing respect, okay, acknowledging their authority over the barangay, over the area. Okay, so yan yung that is why we have to give formal communications and communications. Okay. Also, when we do our formal communications and courtesy call, it is the start of establishing our rapport with the target client. Okay, introducing ourselves, getting to know them, okay, showing respect. Okay, so start of establishing rapport. Okay, and we cannot give any intervention if we do not have relationship with our client. Okay, so that's what formal communications and courtesy calls do. Okay, also they help to strengthen the initial contacts during the first visit. Okay, because we are talking about here about the leaders and informal leaders. Okay, so usually during our first few days in the exposure, during the entry phase, during the actual exposure to the community, okay, they are very important during the first initial visits because they are the ones who are going to welcome us in the community when we do the entry phase already. The kagawads and even the barangay captains sometimes even accompany us house to house to introduce us to the members of the community. Okay, so they are the ones who will they call this, let the community know why we are there, what are the programs that we are going to do there. Okay, so if the people of the community see that we are going around the community during the first few days and kasama natin yung mga leaders nila, of course, makakampante sila. They will be confident that you are not strangers, you are not You mean no harm to the community. Okay, hindi kayo yung mga scammers, for example, na kung saan na lang basta yung mga biglang dumadating na kung saan from anywhere. Okay, so if they see that you are going house to house with the barangay captain, with the kagawads, okay, so yeah, kumbaga legit. Okay, you are authorized to be there. Okay. Fourth reason why we do this, to signify interest to become their partner in their health development. Okay, so once we do formal communications and courtesy calls with the leaders, okay, there becomes a formal signification of interest. Okay, parang there becomes a clear understanding that we are here to help you and that we also need your community kasi of course kailangan ng students namin na ma-expose sa mga community. So we also need your community, but at the same time, we are here to let you feel that there are things that we can do for your community and help your community. So it's going to be a symbiotic relationship. Okay, so we benefit, okay, through our exposure. We learn kasi natututo tayo through exposure in their community. We learn by handling, okay, the members of their community, their health concerns. But at the same time, what do they get in return? Our services, nakikinabang rin sila. Okay, so this is to signify interest that we want to be partners. Okay, we are not begging to go inside, okay, but we would like, okay, to be welcomed. And at the same time, sila rin, they are not begging for us to come in. Okay, hindi sila nagmamakaawa, they are not desperate, but at the same time, they understand that they will benefit also. Okay, to signify interest to become their partner in health development. And it is a partner. Okay, so the keyword there is partner. It is not, for example, we are not employed to be there. We are not there just to give services, but to teach them how to take care of themselves. Okay, so yan yung mga COPAR principles. Why else do we need formal communications and courtesy call? To have an initial presentation about the agency being represented personnel, faculty, students that are to be assigned, the philosophy, the objectives, the program components, the scope of our work. Okay, baka isipin nila the ones who will be coming will be our what do you call this, are like a medical mission. Okay, so we have to clarify that the ones who will be going here are clinical instructors who are nurses already. And students, okay, nursing students, not doctors. Okay, nurses po ang mga darating student nurses, not doctors. So, at the same time, clarification of the job scope. Okay, we will be here to monitor, to see problems. Okay, hindi po kami nandito for 2 days, 1 day only like medical mission, mga operation tuli, hindi po ganun. Okay, so we have to clarify what is the scope of our work when we are there. We have to clarify the expectations. Okay, so yun yung mga ginagawa. Kaya kailangan rin natin ng formal communication and face-to-face meeting with the leaders. Okay. To level of expectations with officials. Okay, so coming from school, so alam natin what is expected from us. So alam natin that we go to the community because we have to experience giving community healthcare. We have to learn from giving community healthcare. We have to apply the concepts of COPAR. Okay, so we know our expectations, but sometimes the community does not know. Okay, ang alam nila basta may medical personnel. Okay, these are doctors. Okay, pwedeng pwedeng magpa-opera, pwedeng magpatuli. Okay, pwedeng pwedeng magpaanak. Okay, so yan yung mga So those are the things that we have to clarify. Okay, to level of the expectations with the officials. Okay, we are not there students lang yung mga yan, walang alam yung mga yan. No. Okay, we also have to level up the expectations. These are 3rd year, 4th year students and they have background already. They have concepts about nursing skills and nursing concepts that they are ready to apply already. These are not ang tawag dito, these are not useless students. Okay? These are not just useless na yung nurse lang, yung clinical instructors lang nilang may silbi. No. Okay, as you can see in the photos that I sent, okay, so ang galing ng mga projects na ini-implement ng mga 2nd year, 3rd year students. Okay, so that it helps us level of the expectations of the officials as well. And lastly, okay, we have formal communications and courtesy calls to discuss immediate plans or activities upon entry of workers, ocular survey, preliminary social investigations. Okay, so papaalam natin na when we go there, there will be ocular survey, preliminary social investigation. It's not implementation of health programs agad. There will be a study of the things that we should. Kaya ano yung mga kailangan ba namin i-implement dito sa barangay nyo, for example. So they might be expecting that upon arrival, we're going to give automatic medical services immediately. Okay, so we have to tell them we have to plan first, we have to gather data. Thus, if they know that we need to gather data, they might have data already. For example, meron na kami mga survey forms, meron na kami mga list of members of the barangay, list of houses, etc., which we can use in gathering data. Okay, so those are the formal communications and reasons why we have to do courtesy calls before we go to the barangay. Okay, again, we are talking about the pre-entry phase before we enter the barangays. Okay. Number 4 talks about PSI, preliminary social investigation, or this is the initial data gathering about the existing community situation from secondary resources. Okay, so again, it is about studying the barangay. Okay, so rationale of preliminary social investigation, to get to know the community we are going to work with. Okay, what is the nature of the community, of the people of the community? What is their culture? What is their behavior? What are their main problems based on history, based on existing data already? To identify potential issues around to which to start organizing people. Sometimes there are issues even before we go into the barangay. So these are the things that we have to study and investigate on. Okay. So what are the decisions? Okay. Like affecting a large number of community members. Okay. People strongly feel about it or believes that it needs urgent attention. Problems that people strongly feel about, or problems that people see that there needs urgent attention. Okay. Are preferably winnable. People strongly feel about it or believes urgent attention. We're talking about issues that are winnable. Okay, the people will be able to get what they want. So potential issues that are winnable, potential issues that we can solve, potential issues that are health related, yun yung mga kailangan natin. Okay. Again, lastly, why do we do preliminary social investigation? To save time, effort, and resources by not repetitively gathering data already available. Okay, so kung 4 weeks tayo sa community and we spend the first 2 weeks gathering data, sayang naman. If the data is already present in the barangay hall, yun na lang yung gagamitin natin. Instead of spending the first, okay, we have 4 weeks in the community. If we spend 2 weeks going around asking people to fill up survey forms para alam natin kung ilan yung tao, nasan yung mga infant, okay? If we spend 2 weeks gathering that data, but yung pala, yung data is already present in the barangay hall, okay? So better. Can use the 2 weeks implementing already. So sabi nga, it is to save time, effort, and resources by not repetitively gathering data that is already available. What are the steps in doing your preliminary survey? Okay, so study existing records. Always ask already. Ano po ba yung mga records na meron na? Ano na yung mga records na nag-gather ng mga previous ng mga schools or previous organizations who already came to your barangay? We study existing records that are present in the even provincial level or municipal level. Okay, hindi lang sa barangay. Reports or documents that are in the municipal office, provincial, municipal and barangay health related offices or non-related offices. Okay, About what? What are the data? The spot map of the community. Ano yung map ng community? Nasaan yung mga bahay? Ano yung mga borders? Ano yung mga boundaries ng barangay na to? Okay. Where are the main roads? Where are the key organizations, okay? Key facilities, okay? Like the school, the house, the barangay clinic. Okay, that is what the spot map will tell you. Okay, I showed you, I think, in one of the photos when we were in Mangkayan, di ba, there were members of the group who were like standing, drawing, survey. Kung may bahay dito, mamarkahan nila yung map. So that is your spot map of the community. Okay. Existing records about total number of households and population. Okay. If there is an existing record already, we do not have to do a survey about that or a census about that. Existing records about formal, informal, and key leaders of the community. Okay, so that's the difference. If there are formal, informal, or key leaders already recorded, okay, we don't have to go around the houses asking sino po ba yung mga head of the community. Okay, so if there are formal, informal leaders already, we know who to approach. Social, political, economic, cultural, environmental, and health situation, community needs and problems. So if there is documentation already about the needs that were identified by other groups, needs identified by the community leaders, problems that happened, and records about the problems that have been happening in the community. So better, instead of us doing our own investigation and research. So existing records will be a big help. Observe and engage in actual dialogues and informal interviews with provincial and municipal leaders. Again, we are talking about here the pre-entry phase, even before we go to a community, as we choose a community. Okay, if possible, let our leaders, hindi naman sinabing the whole group, okay, let the leaders of the school, okay, or if we were outside the school already, okay, let the leaders of our group talk to their groups. Okay, so leader kailangan mag-usap, or lead their leader with our whole group, okay, so that we can interview him. Let's have an actual dialogue, okay, and talk about their community and their problems. Okay, the third step is to collate and analyze the preliminary data that was gathered in order to identify the following. Okay, so once we are able to gather data already that are existing and interview their leaders, okay, we collate and collect and sort the data and identify the following: current needs, issues, or problems that highly affect the majority of the people. Okay, what are the major problems? Important data needed in helping people develop a health program, but which are not available to the preliminary data. Stage or status of community health development work, activities currently being done, approach being utilized, constraints or problems being encountered by other agencies working in the community. So yeah, what are the things, okay, that we would like to collate or identify? Current needs, issues, or problems that highly affect majority of the people. Of course, kung ano yung problema nila, okay, current needs, issues, problems. So like for today, what are our current needs and issues? Okay, your what do you call this? Your academic break is the current issue. Okay, natatambakan daw kayo ng trabaho, natatambakan kayo ng stress and anxiety. Okay, so yeah, those are issues that main concerns of the people right now. The University of Cordilleras, for example, barangay UC, yan ang problema nila. Nasa stress na yung mga bata, baka mag-suicide sila. Okay, so we have to acknowledge that, okay, and see that that is the main problem we have right now. Important data needed in helping people. Okay, so statistically, ilan ba yung assignments na binibigay sa inyo ng mga clinical instructors? Tambak ba yung mga exams nyo? Okay, but which are not available current data. Stage or status of community health development work currently being done. Okay, what are the programs? Are there other organizations in the community now? Okay, after identifying the problems, prepare a write-up of correlated data and analysis using the format of study. Okay, so documentation is important even before the actual activity starts. Okay, remember documents will, what did we learn in your 113? If it's not documented, it never happened. Okay, if the forms were not signed, if the contracts were not signed, okay, so we have to prepare a write-up of correlated data. Okay. Next, formulate your initial but tentative plan. Okay, what are the plans, okay, that you would like to implement? Okay, but again, these are tentative even before your pre-entry phase. You have plans already. Tentative because during the implementation phase, you may be changing some of the plans that you are going to implement. A formulation of an initial but tentative plan. Okay. What else happened during the pre-entry phase? Orientation of agency, health development workers, staff, CI, and students. So orientation, we will have to orient the staff, orient the CIs, orient the students of the things that you will be doing before you go in the community. Okay, what are the contents of your orientation bago kayo mag-community? A health and non-health related situation. Okay, so we have to talk to you about the situation of the community in terms of environment, what to expect, for example, their health situation, what is the ongoing illnesses, okay, why did we choose that community. In terms of dope, we have to orient you about that. Okay. Orientation regarding the responses to the situation by the community themselves, government and non-government health agencies. Okay, so we have to tell you about the situation of the agencies who are asking us to go there in the community. Okay, orientation regarding your COPAR activities, we will review. Okay, for example, being third-year students, we will focus first on what phases of COPAR compared to the different activities being implemented by fourth years. Okay, so we have to review what are the activities that third years will do for COPAR. Practice of initial important skills needed in CHN, yung mga OB bag techniques nyo, learning how to talk to the people in the community during your immersion. So those are important skills that you have to discuss before your entry phase or during the pre-entry phase. Policies, regulation, and requirement of each agencies involved in the community. For example, what are the SOPs before we go to that barangay? Okay, what are the expectations of the barangay? Okay, so yan yung mga regulations na kailangan natin i-discuss during your orientation. So orientation, pre-entry phase, or before we go to the community. Structured activities or group or class orientation include social dramas for the following. So structured activities within the classroom. What are we going to do before the in the pre-entry phase before we go to the community? Okay, objectives of the orientation must be discussed. Okay, presentation of data available. So we have to discuss in the classroom, like for example, the area where we are going to. Okay, so if we're going to Kapangan, I have to show you pictures of Kapangan. I can even show you the flow chart or the organizational chart. So these are the barangay heads, these are the kagawads, these are the midwives, these are the doctors. Okay, so if those data are available, I have to present them to you. Ganito yung itsura ng mga spot map. Okay, in your orientation, I can show you already. Dito tayo matutulog sa barangay hall. This is the clinic, beside it, etc. etc. So presentation of data available. Population, target patients, yan yung mga papakita natin sa inyo. Ilan ang tao doon, ilan ang households, the age groups, okay, those may be presented data. Okay, we also have to discuss the main goals and objectives of your clinical exposure. Why are we going there? Okay, what is the clinical exposure or community exposure. Okay, what are the main objectives? We are also going to review the COPAR process, put emphasis on the parts of the COPAR that should be implemented by third years. Okay, we will also discuss agency and community policies and principles, rules and regulations that are present in that barangay. Okay, and social drama, initial skills required upon entry. So I don't know how we are going to do this sa online. Medyo mahirap eh. It's annoying to do. Hindi ma-annoying pero medyo mahirap kunwari like role play. How are we going to do role play, okay, for third years online? So don't know, we'll see how. Okay. As emphasized by our source, for third years, this is what is expected of you. Okay, for the pre-entry phase, structured activities within the classroom. Okay, training for specific community skills, community research and planning consultation. Okay, and ARAS. Okay, you have to practice your ARAS skills. So ARAS is action, reaction, action, setting. So we have to be able to talk as a group. What have we achieved per day? And also set the action setting. What would you like to achieve for the following days? I think this is the last slide. Okay, so for today, we were able to discuss, go back to the screen share. For today, we were able to discuss, okay, the pre-entry phase, okay, your COPAR process, the parts of the pre-entry phase, description of the pre-entry phase, the things that we do, initial consultation, and selecting a community for immersion is very important. We were also able to discuss what are the things we do with the leaders, okay, so formal and informal, talk to them. And we were able to do our PSI, preliminary social investigation, and a bit of emphasis on how do we prepare before going to the community itself. And that is your pre-entry phase. For the next lecture, we are going directly to the entry phase, okay, which is more complicated. There are more things that we are going to do within the community already, okay, because it starts from planning, implementation, evaluation. So all of those fall into the entry phase. Okay, so structured activities for third years, and we'll see how we are going to implement this. Okay, so this is your lecture for today. And the handout, if you need the slide, I can send them to you, but the handout has already been placed in your group chat. Okay, so I will see you again on Monday. Thank you for your participation in this Zoom lecture for this morning. Good morning and God bless everyone.